We often hear the term never again, and we listen to it and we feel that it brings us very close, particularly when we talk to our brothers from the Jewish community. And what they went through was appalling. But let's examine this never again. The Jewish community didn't do anything wrong. They served their countries, fought in the army, paid the taxes, raised their families, they built businesses, they led in science, they led in medicine, they paid their taxes, they made wonderful contributions to art and education. Same for the Roma communities, right? Same for the disabled, and same for many, many other people. And there were dissidents and other persecuted groups. These people were never a threat. They weren't outsiders. They were part of the culture of Europe. And still they were isolated, humiliated, stripped of their rights, and ultimately many of them were sent to their deaths. So when we hear nations, and the West particularly talk about never again, we have to ask, where were you when it was happening the first time? And what did the nations say? So when Nazis made their intention clear, when Jews and others fled for their lives, the world leaders didn't step up. They stepped back. So Great Britain always talks about we opposed fascism but blocked Jewish immigration, even to Palestine at that particular time. And they appeased Hitler for many, many years and only acted when it threatened its own interests. And this was not because lots of Jewish people were dying. The United States, the world leader, freedom and leader of the free world, it kept strict immigration quotas, turned away the St. Louis ship with the Jewish refugees in 1939, many of whom later died in the Holocaust. They didn't want to bomb Auschwitz or the railways on the line, despite many people who were survivors actually saying this was the best way to actually deal with this particular problem. So they did nothing. Canada took in fewer than 5,000 Jewish refugees before the war. And one of the immigration officials at the time said, none is too many. Australia said, we do not have racial problems and we are not desirous of importing one. France initially collaborated with the Nazis and helped deport many Jews to Auschwitz. And everyone made excuses. Our economies can't handle them. They won't assimilate. Something you hear quite a lot now. There's no integration. How are they going to find coming to this country? And the same sort of rhetoric you hear now. Oh, they're all going to come over in boats. We have lots of common things with boats. And the other things they said, it's not our problem. And Hitler understood this. And he understood that the world won't stop me. And amazingly, in 1938, he offered all these countries. He said, take them, because I don't want these criminals in my land. And you should take them. I don't care if you take them in the luxury ships, but take them. And what did we do? We didn't take them. And what rhetoric were they using at the time? Before the Jews were murdered, the Jews were blamed for Germany's defeat. They were blamed for the economy. they were blamed because they were backward. Disabled people were labelled as useless eaters. Dissidents were framed as enemies of the state. Very familiar, isn't it? It's the same that's happening today. So you abandon people, you call them refugees, you call them immigrants, you call them they're taking over our country, whether they're Muslims or they're non-Muslims, and even if they're Palestinians nowadays. And we see that time and time again, particularly with the Palestinians. So what do? They divide us, they label us, they abandon us, they cause friction in societies, they create figures like Tommy Robinson. And then they say to us, never again. We won't have to let that happen to our country, and we can't have this and that. So remember that it wasn't just Hitler who destroyed lives. It was everyone who chose to remain silent at that particular time. And silence is very important to understand. It's political indifference. It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. We didn't know. They did. We couldn't do anything. They could. It wasn't our place. Never again is easy to say. But in 1938, it meant nothing. And today, as we see the situation today, we have to recognize that we have so much in common in 1938 to now. Remember in 1938, the Evian Conference, and some of the quotes I've made were from the Evian Conference. And Hitler's statement was from just after the Evian Conference. So he knew that they weren't serious. He knew that really the West didn't care. And now we sell the story of history, of how we cared and we saved this particular community. It's important to remember that only a few nations actually rose up to support the Palestinians. And one of those nations and one of those people were the Palestinians. It's very regrettable that we see how the tide has turned. And we're back in the same sort of situation, where today the Palestinians are talked about in the same way as the Jewish community was many, many years ago. And as we see, other communities will be and are already, who are living in Europe and Britain. It's a sad indictment, and it's something that we as human beings and people of love and respect and tolerance and understanding need to do about now. And we need to do something about it now, rather than saying, well, we didn't know, it wasn't really our problem, it was them. And the fact is that it's very, very important to come together. And the coming together is the power. There's very, very few of them. And many, many of us. But what will happen is that if we don't deal with it, the very few who have the loudest voices and access to the loudest voices and the loudest media will have their say and will be forgotten. And history will write about us in many years to come, how we lost them. And strange people will stand up and say the same things that we're hearing today, that never again should have happened. And they will make great stories about how they saved us. But it's about saving us today. Finally, one of the things I would say is that I can see great communities coming together. And perhaps they did at that time as well. There's a time to reflect, but also for all the communities, particularly diverse communities throughout the world, to say that we won't accept this again. Stop playing games with us. Stop messing up our lives. We're not part of your game. We have to change the game. And if it means that we have to destroy the game, let's destroy the game. Thank you.